Hello and welcome to PC Building 101. My name is Will, and we're going to cover the basics of building your own custom PC. In today's episode, I'm going to show you the basics of how to start building your PC. Let's go. Now you're going to want to start by laying out your parts all on the table just like this. Put your motherboard on its cardboard box to ensure that it does not short out or anything like that. And this will be to test and make sure that all your parts are working just fine. Now here's my stock heatsink. It's used so it doesn't have any pre-applied thermal paste on it, as you can see here. If you get one new, it will have pre-applied thermal paste. Now here's the CPU, and you want to keep it in this plastic for now. Now you want to plug your power supply in and have your cables all run out. Make sure it's plugged in so that you can touch it every now and then to get rid of ESD. So you're going to want to start by pulling this lever here down and lifting it up for Intel specifically. And that's going to expose the pins on the LGA socket, a LAN grid array. So all the pins are going to be on the board itself, which are very fragile, so don't touch it or you could break it. Now you're going to want to get your CPU and prepare it and gently remove it from the package. Now if you look at the CPU, you will see a triangle on the edge. Now you're going to want to align that with the triangle on the motherboard that you can see. If you don't see it on the LAN grid array on itself, you can look at it on the top and you'll see it here in the corner here. You can see it in this corner. So we're going to pull that back up. Now it's called a zero insertion force, which means that it takes no force to insert it. All you do is just slowly put it down and release it, and it should go in its slot. You can wiggle it around a little bit to ensure that it's properly seated. Now you're going to want to put the lid back down, make sure it hooks under this thing, grab the lever arm, slide it back under, and the lid will pop off as it's supposed to. You want to keep this lid for RMA return purposes for the motherboard. Now if you want an aftermarket heatsink and not a stock heatsink, you want to use its thermal paste. Usually it comes with its own thermal paste, but in my case I have third-party thermal paste. So you're going to want to put a very small dab of thermal paste, and then it'll spread when you put your heatsink on. Now you're going to want to grab your heatsink and follow the instruction manual on your heatsink itself. If you have a stock heatsink, you can follow what I'm doing here. You're going to want to grab your pins and line them up to the pins on the motherboard. You want to line it down and make sure everything lined up. Or gently look around the heatsink to ensure that all the pins are in place. I like to put a little bit of pressure on it just to spread some of the thermal paste before I put the pins down. I want to push all the pins down in an X pattern, that way it spreads the thermal paste evenly. And then for a stock heatsink, you're going to want to turn the lever afterward. Now you're going to want to find the CPU fan header on your motherboard. In this case, it's right here on the top right of my board. And you see they're slotted specifically so they only fit one way. You just slide it in, and you're done. Now the RAM is next. Now depending on your motherboard, you'll look and you'll see these RAM slot holder arms. You're going to want to put them down specifically for which slots your RAM will go into. Your motherboard may have arms on both sides of the RAM. You're going to want to check the motherboard to ensure whether you can do dual channel, and if you can do dual channel, which slots are associated with dual channel. Most motherboards will have them spaced out, but you're going to want to look and check your motherboard just in case. So you want to make sure you slot them in the correct way. They're keyed so that they only fit in one direction. You're going to want to put it in gently and line it up, and it's going to take a lot of force. And you want to put it evenly on both sides and just push it straight down, and you'll see the lever arm to pull up. It might seem like it's a lot of force, but it's actually not. You gotta do that for both of them, and as you can see here, my RAM slots are spaced out evenly. Next, you're gonna want to find your 24-pin power connector. And as you can see, it's got a clip on it specifically so that it only goes one direction. And it'll click on this lip right here. So you just want to put it back in its place, push it down all the way until it clicks into place. Now you're going to want to find the 8-pin connector. Sometimes they're 4x4, depending on your power supply. And then you want to do the exact same thing. Now next will be the graphics card, and it goes right here in this PCIe slot. Generally, the fastest PCIe slot you have will be the first one. Then you're going to want to push that lever down to allow the graphics card to go in. Now you want to be careful here and ensure that the graphics card properly seats in its slot so it doesn't damage anything. And you push it down and it'll click into place and it'll be locked in. Now this is generally what it'll look like. Depending on your GPU, it may require external power. In that case, you're going to want to get your power supply cables and find the ones that are correctly fitted for a GPU. And they'll say PCIe on them or VGA. And in my case, it's two 8-pin connectors. So you just plug them in like so. Now next, you're going to want to plug in your HDMI into a monitor to ensure that it'll boot up. Now because it's not currently in a case, it may not have a power button. Some motherboards have a power button on the motherboard itself, but in my case it does not. So what we're going to want to do is find the power switch pins on the motherboard and just short them. So you just have to read here on these pins right here to find the one that says power switch on it, and then just short that with a piece of metal. In my case, I'm going to be using a screwdriver, and there you go. It spins up and it starts to boot. Now when you boot up the PC, you should see on your monitor, if it posts and you see this, then you know it's correctly working. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on PC Building 101.